Hello there and welcome to the channel. So it's a nice bright sunny day out here, so it seemed like a good day for a vlogging test, and so I figured I'd do a vlog test with my M50 Mark II, my Canon M50 Mark II. Now this camera I think would work great as a vlogging camera. It's not the most compact, so not like say a ZV-1 or a Canon G7, what is that, the G7X Mark III or something. But it is pretty good, and I like it. I did a video a while back on the stabilization. So this one, it doesn't have IBIS inside the camera body where the sensor actually moves. So like some of the higher end Sony cameras have that, and some of the Panasonic cameras have that also. This one has a digital image stabilization where it actually, I think, zooms in a little bit and processes and tries to get rid of the shake. And I also have the kit lens on this camera right now, so the 15 to 45 millimeter STM lens from Canon that I got with the camera. Now this one has image stabilization built into it. I also think it's a really great kit lens, and I think the MSRP for this camera right now, if you get it with just the body only, it's like what, $600 or thereabouts, $599. And if you get the camera with the kit lens, I think it's about $100 more. So for the extra $100, I definitely recommend getting the 15 to 45 kit lens. As far as the aperture, it goes from like f3.5 on the wide end to f6.3 on the narrow end. Now another thing that makes this camera pretty good as far as a vlogging camera is the autofocus. And it works great in full HD, so 1920 by 1080p. This camera works really good in general at full HD 1080p. It can do 4K, but I'd say if you're going to use it for 4K, there are very restricted circumstances that you would use it in, or that you should use it in, because it loses the dual pixel autofocus that works so well. So you get like a contrast-based autofocus that I think can be less reliable. Also, there's a major crop in, so like right now I have the lens set at 15 millimeters for the focal length, which seems to be pretty good. But if it was zoomed in like another 1.6, 1.7 times or something, it would be a pretty tight shot if you're looking to do it handheld. So I think if you were going to use this camera for 4K shots, it would probably be best if you had the camera stationary and had the focus set manually, and then you could use it. Also for 4K, it only shoots at, I think, around 24 frames per second or 25 frames per second, so you don't have a 30 frames per second option or 60. Now this camera can shoot at 100 frames per second or at around 120 frames per second if you want to do, say, like some super slow-mo stuff, but it can only do that at 720p mode, so not full HD. And when you have it set to the high frame rate recording mode to record that super slow-mo, then it loses the autofocus and it loses, I think, image stabilization and does not record sound. So there are those limitations. In full HD, it can record up to 60 frames per second with sound, autofocus, and image stabilization. So that's something you should probably know. Now there is a variable focal length lens that you can get for this camera that's even better for vlogging. It's I think it's an 11 to 22 millimeter focal range, f4. The thing about it is that lens costs, I want to say, right around $400. Now I have heard of this camera having like fairly short battery life, which, I mean, myself, I don't usually shoot or record for like a really long time at a time to begin with. But one thing I have noticed is, so there's the battery meter. It'll show a midway battery indicator after it gets down some, and then it does not take very long at all for it to go from midway to low battery warning. So probably worth having a spare battery, or making, if you're not going to record for too long, you're probably fine if your battery's full. But if you're going to be doing a lot of recording, probably a good idea to have a spare battery. Now this camera does have a flip out fully articulating screen, so that's great. You can flip it out and frame your shot. It doesn't have the screen that flips up over the top. This one flips out from the side, which I actually prefer, and you can tilt it different ways, so I really like the way it articulates. It's also a touch screen, and you can use it for things like making adjustments to your, in your menus, or starting and stopping recording, using it to set autofocus towards a particular point. The screen is really great. It's one of the strong points of this camera. Now, I think when this camera first came out, it didn't really have a very wide selection of lenses, but that has gotten better now. So there's the kit lens that I mentioned. Sigma also makes a trio of prime lenses, so they don't zoom, but they make a 16mm and what I want to say a 30 and a 56 or something. Viltrox also makes a trio of lenses. I have the 23mm f1.4, so that's one of the nice things about the Sigma and Viltrox. Their trios of lenses are f1.4, so it's that nice, really wide aperture. They can be a little pricey, but there are options there. And then, of course, Canon has a few lenses. And a nice thing about this particular camera and other EFM mount cameras is that you can get an adapter to use EF and EFS lenses, old Canon DSLR lenses, so that's great. Now, I don't think the sound of the internal microphone on this camera sounds half bad. I actually didn't upgrade my microphone for a while because I thought the internal microphone sounded pretty good. But this camera does have an input for you to mount an external microphone, so you could use like a lavalier or, you know, like a shotgun microphone. I actually have a Deity microphone plugged into it right now. It's like the D4 Mini or something. It cost me around 50 bucks, and it is a really nice mic. Now, this camera does have a fairly small body. You know, it's not like point and shoot size, and it might be a little difficult to put into your pocket if you don't have big pockets, but it's still fairly small size, so it's not really all that heavy or anything. I think it would be nice if this camera had more wheels on it for making setting selections. So there's like one multifunction wheel, and you can toggle the setting that wheel changes. So like you can toggle it between ISO, shutter speed, aperture, and the like. But I think it would be nice to have like 2 or 3 different wheels so that I don't have to toggle it to a new setting every time I want to make a change. Of course, you can use the touchscreen, but I like using the wheel, personal preference. So currently I have the lens set to 15mm, which is the widest it goes. And then if I decide to zoom in, that is 45mm, which is the maximum it goes. So just in case you were curious as far as how it looked or how much the kit lens can zoom. Anyway, I think this camera is a pretty good vlogging camera. I mean, it's not the most compact, and there are definitely advantages to something like a point and shoot like the ZV-1, or perhaps something even more compact and durable like a GoPro. But as far as vlogging, I mean, this camera does, I think, most of what a basic vlogger would need it to do. Well, if you found this video helpful, then I'd appreciate it if you'd leave me a like. Thanks for watching, and peace.